The vast emptiness of space stretched out before the Imperial scout ship, a seemingly endless canvas of darkness punctuated by distant starlight. Navigator J. Park sat hunched over his control panel, his eyes scanning the holographic displays with practiced precision. The celestial horizon had been mapping this forgotten sector of the Carina Arm for weeks, a mission most of the crew considered routine and mind-numbingly boring. Most Imperial scouts hoped for excitement, but rarely found it. Today would be different. Faint pulse caught Jay's attention. At first he thought it was another electromagnetic ghost, the kind of random signal that occasionally tricked ship sensors. But this was different. The energy signature had a rhythmic quality, almost like a heartbeat hidden beneath the cosmic silence. "Commander," Jay called out, his voice breaking the ship's monotonous hum. "I'm detecting an unusual reading." Commander Elena Kim approached, her boots making soft clicks against the metal floor. She leaned over the console, her eyes narrowing as she studied the data. Years of exploration had taught her to be both curious and cautious. The signal grew, stronger. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, structured. Something was out there, sending a signal that didn't match any known Imperial communication protocols. "Zoom in," Elena commanded. The holographic display expanded, revealing layers of complex data. What had seemed like a simple energy signature was actually a sophisticated transmission. Embedded within the signal were fragments of information, geometric patterns, mathematical sequences, and something that looked remarkably like technological infrastructure markers. "This isn't natural," Jay whispered. The ship's computer began analyzing the signal, breaking down its complex layers. Most Imperial missions would have dismissed such a weak transmission. But the celestial horizon was different. Its crew was known for thoroughness, for investigating even the smallest anomalies. Hours passed. The signal continued, consistent and precise. It wasn't trying to communicate. It was simply existing, broadcasting its presence to anyone who might be listening. As they drew closer, the first visual confirmations began to appear. Orbital scans revealed something impossible, a planetary system that shouldn't exist. The planet at the center of the transmission was perfectly positioned in its star's habitable zone. Atmospheric readings suggested not just the possibility of life, but the strong likelihood of an advanced civilization. "This can't be right," Elena muttered, running diagnostic checks. But the data was consistent. Preliminary scans showed complex technological signatures across the planet's surface. Cities, infrastructure, energy networks that seemed to pulse with an organic regularity. And most surprisingly, human signatures. Not just remnants or archaeological traces. Active, living, functioning human civilization. Jay's hands moved across the controls, initiating deeper scanning protocols. The planet looked like it had been isolated for thousands of years. No known human migration routes came anywhere near this sector. By all Imperial records, this civilization should not exist. Yet there it was. The transmission continued, a steady, rhythmic pulse that seemed to whisper of secrets waiting to be discovered. It wasn't a distress signal. It wasn't an invitation. It was simply a statement of existence. "We are here. We have survived." Commander Elena Kim felt a chill run down her spine. Decades of Imperial exploration had taught her that the universe was full of surprises. But this was something entirely different. "Prepare landing protocols," she ordered, "and alert High Command. We're about to make a discovery that will change everything." The celestial horizon adjusted its trajectory, moving closer to the mysterious planet. Its crew, once bored and expecting another mundane mapping mission, now sat alert and expectant. Something extraordinary was about to happen, and they would be the first to witness it. The planet grew larger in their view screen. Its surface was a complex tapestry of green landscapes, gleaming technological structures, and intricate urban designs that seemed to grow organically from the planetary ecosystem. A forgotten human civilization. Waiting, existing, thriving. Unknown. To the Imperial explorers on the planet's surface, People went about their daily lives, completely unaware that their long isolation was about to come to an unexpected end. First contact was moments away. The first detailed scans of the planet revealed a world that defied all Imperial expectations. Satellite imagery showed a landscape both alien and familiar, a perfect blend of technological infrastructure and natural environments. Cities weren't built on the planet. They grew from it, like intricate extensions of the planetary ecosystem. David Choi, the chief scientific officer, couldn't believe his eyes. The civilization below had developed technologies that seemed to bridge the gap between engineering and biology. Buildings appeared to breathe with exterior surfaces that changed color and texture based on environmental conditions. Energy networks pulsed beneath the ground like veins, carrying power with an efficiency that made Imperial systems look primitive. Initial atmospheric readings showed something even more remarkable. The planet's environment had been carefully managed with complex carbon capture systems and atmospheric regulators that maintained perfect ecological balance. This wasn't just survival, it was mastery. Communication intercepts began to paint a fascinating picture. The society below operated on principles of complete collective cooperation. There were no visible signs of economic disparity, no evident power struggles. Each individual seemed to contribute to the broader community in a way that felt almost organic. Medical data streams were particularly shocking. The human population showed genetic adaptations that suggested centuries of careful biological engineering. Their bodies were optimized for the planet's specific conditions, enhanced lung capacities, improved metabolic efficiency, and immune systems that could handle environmental challenges Imperial medical teams would find impossible. This is beyond advanced, David muttered to himself, reviewing the data. This is evolutionary engineering at its most sophisticated. The civilization's technological development told a story of isolation and incredible innovation. Cut off from external resources, they had been forced to develop solutions to every possible challenge. Water management systems recycled with near-perfect efficiency. Agricultural technologies produced food with minimal environmental impact. Energy production was so clean that the planet's ecosystem showed no signs of technological stress. Communication networks revealed a society that had transformed isolation into an opportunity for deep scientific and cultural development. Educational systems were integrated into every aspect of daily life. Learning wasn't a separate activity. It was a continuous process woven into social interactions, work, and personal growth. What fascinated the Imperial team most was the civilization's approach to technology. Unlike Imperial societies that saw technology as a tool of control or expansion, this human settlement viewed technological development as a form of collective problem-solving. Each innovation seemed to emerge from a genuine desire to improve collective living conditions. The planet's urban design was equally revolutionary. Cities weren't separate from nature but integrated into it. Green spaces weren't decorative. They were functional components of urban infrastructure. Buildings collected rainwater, generated solar energy, and provided habitat for local wildlife. The line between artificial and natural had been completely blurred. Communication intercepts suggested a society with a unique philosophical approach. They didn't see themselves as conquerors or survivors, but as caretakers. Their relationship with their planet was symbiotic, a partnership rather than a dominance model. David Choi found himself reviewing the data repeatedly, searching for some hidden flaw. But the evidence was consistent. This was a human civilization that had not just survived in isolation, but had thrived, developing solutions to challenges that had stumped galactic societies for centuries. Population records showed stable growth, minimal health issues, and a society that seemed to have solved many of the fundamental problems that plagued other civilizations. No visible conflicts, no resource wars, no systemic inequalities. The Imperial team's initial excitement began to mix with something else, a growing sense of professional humility. This wasn't a civilization that needed rescue or guidance. If anything, they had something to teach the rest of the human settlements. As more data streamed in, one question became increasingly prominent. How had this civilization remained hidden for so long? And what would their discovery mean for the broader human understanding of potential and progress? The planet below continued its quiet, efficient existence, completely unaware of the massive implications its discovery would bring to the galactic community. Centuries of isolation had created something unique, a human civilization that had rewritten the rules of survival, development, and coexistence. First contact was imminent, and nothing would remain the same after this moment. The cultural analysis team worked tirelessly, sifting through intercepted communications and data streams. What they discovered challenged everything the Imperial researchers thought they knew about human civilization. Rachel Kang, leading the cultural research team, sat back in her chair, her mind reeling from the information flooding their systems. This wasn't just another human settlement. This was a complete reimagining of social structure, education, and human potential. Language intercepts revealed a communication system that was both complex and incredibly inclusive. Their language had evolved to eliminate most forms of hierarchical expression. Words that suggested superiority or subordination simply didn't exist. Every communication was structured as a collaborative dialogue, even when discussing complex, scientific or social challenges. Education was their most striking cultural innovation. From early childhood, individuals were taught not just academic skills but comprehensive life problem-solving. Children didn't just learn mathematics or science. They learned how to think, how to collaborate, how to address community challenges. Learning was a continuous, lifelong process integrated into every aspect of daily life. The economic system defied imperial understanding. There were no traditional concepts of personal wealth or individual ownership. Resources were managed as a collective system, with each individual contributing based on their abilities and receiving support based on community needs. It wasn't communism or socialism. It was something entirely new. Medical records showed a society that had transformed healthcare into a preventative, holistic system. Genetic screening wasn't about eliminating differences but understanding individual potential. Mental health was treated with the same importance as physical health. Stress management was a fundamental part of their educational and work systems. Their approach to technology was equally revolutionary. Every technological innovation was evaluated not just for its efficiency, but for its impact on community well-being and environmental sustainability. Technologies that created more problems than they solved were simply not developed. Art and creativity weren't separate from scientific or practical pursuits. They were integrated as essential forms of problem-solving and community communication. Their visual arts, music, and creative expressions were complex languages that communicated scientific and social insights. Rachel noticed something particularly fascinating about their social interactions. Conflict resolution wasn't about winning or losing, but about finding solutions that benefited the entire community. Their communication methods included sophisticated emotional intelligence techniques that allowed complex disagreements to be resolved collaboratively. The gender dynamics were equally interesting. There were no visible gender-based restrictions or inequalities. Leadership, scientific research, artistic expression, all were approached based on individual capability, not gender expectations. Environmental management was perhaps their most impressive cultural achievement. Every individual was educated from childhood about ecological systems. Their cities weren't just built on planets. They were living ecosystems that actively contributed to planetary health. Their spiritual and philosophical approaches rejected traditional religious structures. Instead, they developed a complex understanding of human connection to broader ecological and universal systems. It was a worldview that saw humanity as part of a larger, interconnected system, not as a dominant species. Reproduction and family structures were equally innovative. Child-rearing was seen as a community responsibility. Children were raised with multiple adult influences, not just biological parents. The entire community was invested in individual development. The research team began to realize they weren't just studying a civilization. They were witnessing a completely different model of human potential. "This changes everything," David Choi muttered, reviewing the cultural data. The Imperial delegation would soon discover that this wasn't a lost colony to be studied or controlled. This was a civilization that had something profound to teach the rest of humanity. As more information came through, one thing became increasingly clear. Human potential was far more expansive than anyone had previously imagined. This hidden civilization had transformed isolation into an opportunity for unprecedented social and technological evolution. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't conquest or technological dominance. It was the ability to adapt, collaborate, and reimagine what was possible. First contact would be more than a moment of discovery. It would be the beginning of a profound transformation in how humanity understood itself. The Imperial Communications Shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, its silver hull reflecting the soft blue-green light of the alien sky. Inside, the diplomatic team prepared for what could be the most significant first contact in galactic history. Rachel Kang adjusted her standard communication interface, her hands steady despite the tension filling the small cabin. She had spent weeks preparing potential communication protocols, but nothing could truly prepare them for this moment. As the shuttle approached the designated landing zone, the landscape below came into sharp focus. It wasn't a military greeting area or a formal reception ground. Instead, they were being guided to what appeared to be a community gathering space, an open area surrounded by buildings that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. The first visual contact was unexpected. No military formations, no official, diplomatic delegation. Just a group of people, men, women, children, standing together, watching the shuttle's approach with calm curiosity. Communication protocols suggested formal introductions. Imperial Standard Procedure recommended extensive security measures, detailed screening, and careful diplomatic language. But nothing in their training could have prepared them for what happened next. As the shuttle's doors opened, a young woman stepped forward. She was dressed simply, wearing clothing that seemed both functional and aesthetically beautiful. No weapons, no formal diplomatic attire, just a genuine smile and an open posture that suggested welcome without submission. "Welcome," she said. In perfect Imperial Standard language, her pronunciation crisp and clear. "We've been expecting you." The words were simple, but their implications were profound. They had been expecting contact, not feared it, not prepared to fight, simply waiting. J. Park, the Imperial Navigation Officer, found himself momentarily speechless. Everything about this greeting challenged every diplomatic encounter in Imperial history. Where were the formalities? The careful political maneuvering? The demonstrations of power? Rachel stepped forward, her own training fighting against the unusual nature of the encounter. "We come from the Galactic Imperial Survey," she began, following standard first contact protocols. The woman, who introduced herself as Maya, interrupted gently. "We know," she said. "We've been monitoring your approach for several weeks. Would you like something to drink? We have fresh water from our community gardens." It was an invitation. Not a negotiation, not a challenge, simply a human gesture of welcome. The Imperial team exchanged glances. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to happen. There were no security checkpoints, no preliminary genetic screenings, no diplomatic credentials being verified. As they were led into the community center, the true nature of their discovery became increasingly clear. The building wasn't a government facility. It was a communal space where people worked, learned, and lived together. Children played nearby. Older community members worked on complex technological projects. Maya explained their history casually, as if discussing a routine day. Generations ago, their colony ship had been damaged. Communication systems failed. Unable to call for help, they had been forced to adapt, and in that adaptation they had created something entirely new. "We didn't just survive," Maya said, showing them a holographic display of their planetary development. "We reimagined what human civilization could be." The Imperial team realized they weren't dealing with a lost colony. They were encountering a civilization that had evolved beyond anything in galactic human experience. Questions about governance, military capabilities, economic systems, all seemed suddenly irrelevant. This wasn't a society to be assessed or controlled. This was a civilization that had solved fundamental human challenges in ways no one had previously imagined. As the day progressed, the Imperial team found themselves not as conquerors or investigators, but as students. Every conversation revealed layers of innovation, collaborative thinking, and human potential that challenged everything they thought they knew. The first contact wasn't a moment of tension or conflict. It was an invitation to understand a different way of existing, a different way of being human. And everything was about to change. The news spread quickly through Imperial communication networks. A forgotten human civilization had been discovered, not as a struggling colony, but as an advanced society that challenged every existing understanding of human potential. Imperial leadership convened emergency meetings. Researchers analyzed mountains of data. Politicians debated potential implications. But beneath the official discussion, something fundamental was changing. This wasn't just a scientific discovery. It was a complete re-examination of human capabilities. The civilization's technological innovations began attracting attention from research centers across multiple star systems. Their ecological management techniques could solve planetary environmental challenges that had plagued galactic societies for centuries. Their medical technologies suggested genetic adaptation methods that could revolutionize human survival in extreme conditions. But more importantly, their social structures presented a radical alternative to existing imperial models of governance and societal organization. No weapons, no economic inequality, no systematic oppression. A society that had solved fundamental human challenges through collective intelligence and collaborative problem-solving. David Choi, leading the research team, found himself repeatedly reviewing the data. Each analysis revealed deeper layers of complexity. This civilization hadn't just survived in isolation. They had created a blueprint for a different kind of human existence. Imperial universities began requesting comprehensive research materials. Scientists from different sectors wanted to understand how this civilization had achieved such advanced ecological integration. Medical researchers were fascinated by their genetic adaptation techniques. The economic implications were enormous. Their resource management system suggested possibilities of sustainable development that could transform entire planetary economies. They had created technologies that produced zero waste, integrated perfectly with natural systems, and supported complex human needs. Political leaders struggled to categorize this discovery. Was it a threat? An opportunity? A model to be studied or a civilization to be controlled? Slowly, a new understanding began to emerge. This wasn't about conquest or assimilation. This was about learning, about understanding the true potential of human collaboration. Communication channels remained open. The isolated civilization showed no fear, no desire to hide. They were willing to share their knowledge, their technologies, their understanding of collective human potential. Imperial. Diplomatic protocols began to change. Traditional approaches of military positioning and economic negotiation seemed suddenly outdated. This civilization demonstrated that human progress wasn't about competition, but about collective problem-solving. Young researchers and students became the most excited demographic. They saw in this civilization a different vision of human future, a future not defined by conflict but by collaborative innovation. The genetic research alone was revolutionary. Their population showed adaptation techniques that could help humans survive in previously uninhabitable planetary conditions, immune systems that could resist complex environmental challenges, metabolic innovations that suggested entirely new approaches to human physical development. Educational systems across imperial territories began incorporating studies of this civilization. Their approach to learning, integrated, holistic, focused on collective problem-solving, started influencing curriculum design. Political discussions shifted. If one isolated human civilization could create such an advanced society, what did that mean for human potential everywhere? The paradigm was changing, slowly, fundamentally. Imperial military strategists found themselves in an unusual position. This civilization had no defensive weapons, no aggressive technologies. Their security was based on collective problem-solving and environmental integration, yet they were more secure than any militarized society. As months passed, the initial shock transformed into genuine curiosity. Researchers, diplomats, scientists, they all wanted to understand, not to control, but to learn. The forgotten civilization had become a beacon of possibility, a living example of what humans could achieve when they approached challenges collectively, when they saw themselves as part of a larger ecological and social system. The galactic understanding of human potential was never going to be the same. 1. Small planetary discovery had begun a transformation that would reshape human civilization across multiple star systems, and it all started with a simple signal. A quiet communication from a forgotten world, saying simply, "We are here. We have survived. We have something to teach you."